Hi, I'm Ian, and this is Novel Notions. This is my book review show. It's a pretty normal book review. Yep, that's it. That's what it is. Hi. So, this episode, I want to talk about A Court of Thorns and Roses. I read it back in January. I did a video on it in Spicy Book Club. I felt like, again, I didn't really get to talk as much about it as I would have liked to have, and I think I was a little more critical than I wanted to be. I will probably bring some of that same energy, but I wanted to expound on my thoughts a little bit in more detail than what I had previously. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into that. Right. All right. Hi. Let's get into this review of A Court of Thorns and Roses. These are all my opinions. They're not objective. This is just how I feel about the book. And if they're not the same as yours, I'm sorry. If they are, that's cool. We have something in common. If you love this book and this series, I don't want to yuck your yums. So that being said, I love that you love this book, and I love that you probably love a lot of romantic fantasy or romance. So let's start this off with diving into the plot. Okay, so what is A Court of Thorns and Roses about? I'll tell you. A Court of Thorns and Roses follows a girl named Farah, age 19. We just want to specify that. Farah comes from an impoverished family in the world of Prythian. Her father fell from grace, I guess, as a traitor. You know, things happen. Her family is destitute, and she happens to be the breadwinner. While Farah is out hunting, she stumbles upon a wolf. She kills said wolf, and later finds out that this wolf is a fairy after his High Lord, Tamlin, barges into this family's house, or her family's house, and demands to know who did it. Farah goes and admits to it, and then he gives her an ultimatum. He says, you can either die here, like I'll kill you, or you can come back to my estate and live the rest of your life. She decides to go to the estate. Once at the estate, after a lot of chapters, a relationship starts to blossom between Tamlin and Farah. That's really the big portion of this book, rightfully so. Not talking. Upon going to Prythian, you find out, or Farah finds out, that the land and its people are struck with a curse. Eventually, you meet a character named Amarantha. She is the HBIC of Prythian currently. This curse that Amarantha has put upon the world or the people is tied to Tamlin and now Farah in order to break it and free Prythian of this vice Amarantha has them in. Spoiler-free review of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm pretty mid on this book. It did nothing for me. It didn't do anything against me. I didn't dislike it. I didn't necessarily enjoy it. I would say I was pretty bored through a very large bulk of it. That's a me problem, not a book problem. So I want to say that. And that's mostly around, this is a romantic fantasy. 34 chapters of this book revolve around just developing or trying to develop a relationship between Tamlin and Farah. If you're not into that, you're not going to like this book. And with that being said, I don't plan on going and continuing with this series, but I love that you love it.
This is your spoiler warning.
If you want to read this book and experience it fresh, unbiased, unaltered, don't watch the rest of this. Hit that watch later button, the button that everyone sleeps on. Watch later, go finish it, and then come back. Then we can talk about it. If you have read the book, buckle up, let's talk. What should we do next? Prythian. Okay, so Prythian is the continent, the world in which this whole story takes place. There's a big old misty line that divides the human world from the fairy world. Eventually you find out that fairies and humans used to cohabitate. I have to get something off my chest. I hate this name. I said this during my spicy book club review. I stand by it. The continent is called Prythian. Now, what do you call people from Canada? You call them Canadians. Call people from like Estonia. They're Estonians, right? The prefix or the suffix, right? That's the one that comes at the end, right? Or it's not a suffix. This ending, okay? This end right here bugs me, actually bothers me, right? Because like you were so close, Sarah. Prythia, right? The Prythians of Prythia, whether that's the humans or the Fae, I don't give a the Prythians of Prythia. Sarah, you were saying to yourself, I'm going to construct this unique world. It's going to have fairies in it, it's going to have humans in it, and it's going to be really cool. And girl, I support that. I support that up and down that damn dividing line. Hear me out though. So you hit us with Prythian, and I'm not about it. And then I'm like, okay, wait. Let's see what she's got. Let's let her cook. Let's see what she's gonna do. What you want to know what the rest of her world is called? This is what she named them. She literally was like the time of day and the seasons. All right. So you like, how do you go from like, I'm going to make this bespoke world. It's going to be called Prythia. And then I'm going to be like, oh, yo, we got the dusk court, the dawn court, the night court, the spring court, the summer court, the autumn court, the winter court, and the give a shit court, dude. Right. Like you could have named them different things. Something more unique, something that kind of goes with Prythian, at least in my opinion. Something like you could have like something that like gives this world a sort of like, I don't know, flavor, a culture, kind of like, oh, it's, you know, it's all intertwined. It's like relative. Like this is why it's called Prythian. Some could argue that this doesn't matter. I largely agree with you. Other than, hi, my name's Ian, it matters to me. But you named your place Prythian. You gave it a unique name that I haven't heard it before. I'm glad I hadn't heard it before. And then you leave us with, I'm going to name all the regions of it after the phases of the day or the times of the day, and then the seasons of the year. And this is low hanging fruit, right? You don't name yourself place something like unique and then just hit me with like laziness, right? You should have just used ChatGPT to name them. ChatGPT would have made like better names than this, 100%. So this was a bummer, and it kind of like upset me because this is boring. Like this is like, oh, the courts are regions. Like they're the controlling powers. Oh, if you read book 2, it'll make more sense. Shut up. I don't care. It should make sense now. And you don't really build much. That's another thing I have a problem with. So this is Tamlin's court right here, the spring court. And most of this book takes place either in the spring court in his estate, where, you know, like Farrah's just chilling and trying to escape and stuff and trying to figure out the world, which is like, okay, cool. Like I get that. And then she goes under the mountain, which is like, that is where this book gets interesting. But do you want to know how long that takes? It takes 35 chapters to get to that part. Bro, like, me up on that one. Like, let's get into that. Once you finally find out why Prythian has been cursed, it comes down to Tamlin must find a human to fall in love with, a human woman to fall in love with, and he has to like 75 years to do it. If he does not, then he must go back under the mountain where Amarantha resides and be her lover, her husband, I don't know, however it worked. Now I have problems with this because the way he has to do it is the woman has to kill a fairy, i.e. what I was talking about before. Feyre is the only one that kills a fairy. This prophecy sort of falls apart for me. The main reason why it falls apart is because Farah didn't know it was a fairy, man. Like, she didn't know it. While Farah is hunting, she encounters a wolf. I believe in the text, she's like, wow, he looks a little bit different. This could be like a fairy, right? Right? But it's not really confirmed at that point. She just knows it's a wolf. She knows that her family's hungry, and she bought an ash arrow with an iron like arrowhead for fairies in case she had to use it. Now, a couple things come up. They admit later, like Alice admits, the servant, if you've read it, you know, Alice admits to her in like chapter like 33 or 34, somewhere around there, that Tamlin has been sending in his wards or his guards in his court as wolves because he knows that if any human, regardless of gender, were to see a fairy, they would run away because of how much more powerful a fairy is. So we have confirmed that if a fairy were to be caught by a human in the human world, they would run, right? Especially like just your average Joe Schmo woman, and that's like a housewife. Obviously, Farah is capable, but that doesn't change the fact that if Farah would have seen an actual fairy, she would have second guessed that. She was second guessing the wolf. Like, she was still scared of fairies. She just thought this one, after she had killed it, looked a little strange. Didn't really look that wolf-like. Looked like it had a little spark in its eye, something like that. She still killed it. And the only reason she used the ash arrow, which was kind of a fluke, right? She just bought that as like protection against fairies. It was also her best arrow. She was saving that for like an oh crap kind of moment. And yeah, she just went and just used that one because like regular wooden like flint knapped like arrows probably wouldn't have taken it down. So like that just kind of like feels a little weird. Like, is the prophecy fulfilled if the woman that's supposed to kill a fairy in cold blood, doesn't know it's a fairy? Because that was like the caveat. It's like, it has to be in cold blood. It has to be because she hates the fairy. Sure, she hates fairies. She didn't know it was a fairy. And that's where the prophecy goes. And you know what? Again, am I thinking too far into it? Probably, right? Probably. But it doesn't make sense to me, right? It's like, she didn't know it. Like, you can't blame her. She didn't kill him in cold blood. She's not guilty. She was protecting herself. Like, that's some, like, she was going to get murked if she didn't. The next part that kind of doesn't sit well, or like kind of bugged me, is that to get that exposition, to get that explanation from the story, you better be committed. Like, this doesn't get revealed until like chapter like at least 32 or 33. Because Farah, and I looked it up, like Farah doesn't go under the mountain, which is where all the cool stuff happens. The fun parts of this book happen at chapter 35, right? You have to go through 34 chapters of like non-exposition, of just like set up, like the Romantasy, but it's not like I didn't feel like compelled. I didn't feel like engaged with the Romantasy. It felt like I really felt like I was spinning my wheels for like a lot of that. I'm glad it finally paid off, but like, girl, you're gonna like keep me in this, like, it takes 35, there's only 46 chapters in this book, and you're gonna like keep me going. Not even going. I'm just like I'm falling asleep probably through a lot of these chapters. Look, and here's why it's a me problem. I understand that I don't read a lot of like romance. This book has made me want to read more romance and kind of broaden my horizons. So I can say, like, is this like a good book? Or is it just popular because it gets a little steamy with like the sexy fairies, right? I want to see like what romance has to offer. And I really don't, I hope it's not just this. I refuse to believe it's just this, because I just felt so bored with Tamlin and Farah being children. And it also makes it weird because Tamlin knows what he's doing. Tamlin understands his part of the deal, the prophecy, right? He's still like, because now it makes it weird, right? So if he understands the prophecy, then is it even genuine that he falls in love with her? I guess yes, because the plot needs it to, but like I get, yeah, he like genuinely falls in love with her when he knows it's like there's an ulterior motive to him falling in love with Feyre. Feyre is the only one that doesn't, I would say, is genuinely in love with him. And then she goes through these trials and tribulations through Amarantha's like mountain that almost takes her life, and I just wanted it to be a little bit more compelling. I shouldn't have to wait 35 chapters, not for like the action. The action was actually pretty cool, but like just for more macro story components, more like why they're doing this. It didn't really sprinkle it in all that much. There is a library scene where it uncovers, you know, how humans and fairies used to intermingle until, you know, a war, and the fairies fought with the humans, you know, yada yada. We get that. It's like, but you don't really trickle or sprinkle in much of that throughout the rest of the story up until 35. And that just sucked, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie. That was a bummer. What else could I talk about? How about, okay, so back at it again with the love. The love, like the romance in this book, I really don't have anything to base it off of. I've never read just outright romance. I would say everything between Tamlin and Feyre in the beginning, and I say beginning being like 30 chapters, in his estate in the Spring Court, felt like small vignettes of just two people trying to get to know each other, and it didn't really feel like they got to know each other. There's a couple steamy scenes, but like they weren't having all that many like deep conversations to like find out, you know, about one another. Like they were more or less tolerating each other, it felt like. It wasn't until, and they do end up falling in love by the end of it before he sends her off. But you don't find out, again, anything about this curse and what Tamlin's motives are until chapter 35, when Alice, just his servant, is just like, here's the exposition. And yeah, I mean, I felt like I walked away with it from it, and I said, at least I finished it. Like, it got way more interesting at 34, 35, but like, couldn't we have had a little bit more of that earlier on? Like, couldn't we have made it a little bit more like compelling? I don't know, man. I can't be a huge critic on romance until I read more romance. I was pretty mid on it the whole time. If you liked it, you liked it, and I love that for you. Like, I mean, it does get steamy. I will, like, kind of bring up again that it's not like some, like, smut fest. Like, it's actually pretty boring. I would have preferred more of a smut fest, to be completely honest. Like, you need to give me something for 30 chapters to, like, get me like, oh yeah, like this is interesting, like hot fairy sex, like I guess we're going that route, but like something. There was a lot of just like, we're eating dinner at a magic table. I can make the magic table bigger or smaller, and there's plentiful, bountiful, you know, mounds of food, and I'm gonna go on a freaking horse ride, and yeah, I don't know, man. It was fine, I guess. Like I said, it's just not mine. It's just not me. It's just not me. In conclusion, I still feel like this is probably right up anyone's Romantasy alley if you're into those. I cannot recommend it. I am not a romance reader. I'm a fantasy, sci-fi, maybe a little self-help and nonfiction in there. It's not really in my typical genre. So I just don't feel like it's not that I can't recommend it. I just don't feel comfortable recommending it because I just don't read a lot of it. Like it'd be different if you were like, hey, what do you think of these fantasy books or these sci-fi books? I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely recommend this, right? Like I just finished one book and I'm going to make a video on that, but like, I'm going to recommend that book. I'm going to gas it up. I can't necessarily I can't comfortably recommend ACOTAR to you, but I hope you liked it if you did read it. I hope that this doesn't keep you from reading it. Just know that if you're not into romance, you're not going to enjoy it. Which is sort of like, that's kind of self-explanatory, right? Like that's why I say like this is a me problem, not necessarily a book problem. Also, I think Sarah J. Maas was a perfectly like a good writer. The prose was good. I didn't think like it wasn't like simply written. I've always heard people complain about Twilight. What was her name? I can't remember it. I'll put it up here. But people used to complain that it feels like an elementary school kid wrote that book. I felt like this, like Sarah, like you did a great job. I just want to go back and say that it wasn't like your ability to write. I would say, if anything, the problem I had was you weren't as imaginative as I thought or expected. Right. Again, the Prythian thing. And then hit me with those court names. Like the only time anyone should see Night Court is on like Peacock. Right? Get it? It's a show. Night Court. From like the 80s, 70s, 80s, and rebooted. Anyway. Well, I'm going to head out. I'm going to kick it back over to intro, outro. Ian, I hope you've enjoyed this. Bye! So yeah, that's what I think about ACOTAR. If you liked it, you liked it. If you didn't, you didn't. If it's your thing, I love that for you. And ultimately, I just didn't find it to be something I was quite into. However, again, maybe I just need to read a little bit more romance and see what the genre is all about before I can make a true call on whether it's good or not. Really, good's also subjective. Like, what I think is good, you might not think is good either. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the things. Please check out Some Damn Channel. My boy Jared and I are doing a lot of good things over there. Yeah, that's what I've really got for you. Maybe have a good rest of your day. Bye.